Well, just when you thought it was safe, I returned from the dead. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Sunday evening. And first of all, happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. It is Mother's Day 2023. Welcome to Let's Talk Oconee SC. You can watch the show around the world at letstalkoconeesc.com. Also on our social media page. And you can also call the show tonight, 864-973-7559, as we start here on this Sunday evening. And I've got a lot of things to get to. We'll start off going around the table here on this Saturday morning. Rannie, good to have you back in the studio with us.
Man, Jeff, it's glad to have you back. I tell you what, without you, we don't get to do this. And thank goodness you're in good health now.
Well, kind of, sort of in good health. Oh. I'm working towards getting there. I do want to mention, first of all, about what is going on and what has happened for folks that doesn't know. For over 3.5+ years, I've been dealt with some nasty sickness. Picture this. Stomach virus 10 to 20 times worse. And that's what you will have, what I went through and have been going through. And just so happens, I got the right doctor Monday morning at Oconee Memorial Hospital. He immediately recognized what the problem was. He said, "You have Crohn's disease." And again, I will say this, I had some of the best care from Oconee Memorial Hospital that I've ever had in my entire life. From the doctors, from the time I walked into the ER to the time that I was back there, they were, Johnny on the spot with everything. Went ahead and admitted me, put me up on the floor. Antibiotics and fluids became my best friend. And we're thankful now that we're on a course. We know what it is. Now we got to figure out how to prevent the flare-ups.
I got to tell you, that's got to be a real relief. I know I suffered with gout for 15 years before anybody could tell me that it was gout. Military medicine is not like Oconee Memorial Medicine. Here's some ibuprofen, go on
about your business and walk it off.
But,
yes.
I ran into that when I finally got stationed in San Antonio. I got to see a doctor that was on a contract. It wasn't a military doctor. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "I'm going to test your blood for gout."
Yep.
And sure enough, that's what I had. They're like, "We're spraining your ankles." I'm like, I hadn't done nothing to sprain my ankle. I just woke up feeling this way.
Well, I'm thankful. And I'm very happy. We do have great care now in Oconee and Oconee Memorial. It was a night and day difference from for the folks that grew up here. We always kid and joke that if you're going to die, you need to go on to Greenville, because if you go to Oconee, you will die. But not this time. It was a very good report, a good situation, and I'm thankful for the doctors and the nurses.
Right. Well, hey, before you go on to anybody else, it is Mother's Day, and I wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom and my grandma, my current wife and my ex-wives. I really do appreciate them.
I like the way you said that to my ex-wives.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be mothers. So, Happy Mother's Day. None of them. If it wasn't for me, my mama wouldn't be a mama. My wives wouldn't be a mama either.
Well, also, too, congratulations to the oldest one. She graduated Clemson University.
She did. That was a very, I'm still in awe about that. Yeah. You're an old man now when you got kids graduating college.
Wait till they get married and have kids.
I got a daughter that's graduating Walhalla on the 27th. So, yeah, man, it's about over. Be grandkid time real soon, but they can take their time.
All right. Well, let's move on over to the other side. Cathy, it's good to see you and have you here on the show.
Good to see you. I'm glad you're feeling better.
I am. I'm feeling better. And Chris Ruin, you're still just look the same. I thought you'd have changed at least for 2 weeks, but you're still the same.
No. Check this out.
Okay.
I'm having it all trimmed out week 2 by a professional. Oh, hey, somebody likes my beard.
Yeah. Chris Ruin, Yerba's beard is epic. Okay.
Well, I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna say 2 things. The first one is, you're right about Oconee. I had pneumonia about 4 years ago, and you talk about it was horrible, and these guys were incredible to me. Second of all, as far as Mother's Day, Cathy, happy Mother's Day. I know you're a great mother.
Thank you.
My wife, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law, greatest mothers around. They would rival mine, even though I know my mom would probably strike me down if I said that, but she would agree. And that's it. And I'm so happy because I was getting the shakes, not having the show. and so stressed out. Now I'm so relaxed and ready.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that's happened in the last 2 weeks. And do you want to go into the good story first, or you want to push it to the second half?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
No, I'd like to go first if you let me.
Well, let's let Rowan go first today here on the program, and it all boils down to a gun range. I can't wait to hear this one.
Okay, guys. Now, it's really important that people listen to what I'm going to say, because I know these people that want to
Well,
muddy.
you're not going to take my gun rights.
What? Who? That people.
You're not taking my gun rights.
All they're going to say is, well, that gun range was there first. Okay. Both parties are right. And I want to explain why. And I want to explain to you exactly what you're seeing, which is another issue that we're going to face, just like Sewer South. But this is now going to start accelerating. And I'm going to tell you what's going on. So, like I said, both parties are right. There's an 80-acre gun range and residence in a control-free district. Okay. Now, when you're building, you still have to get approval. So the gun range was approved and built first. Now, you have a residential community a little less than 1 mile away with children. Okay, so there's shooting going on with military-grade weapons 365 days a year. In the lawsuit, the residents say parties observed shooting in all directions without any supervision 365 days a year using military-grade weapons. Now, you get these people on the far right, well, the gun range was here first, Second Amendment. Okay. So let's just forget this. Let's talk about children and families and approval by both parties by the county. Okay, these residents have heard and observed bullets hitting trees near where they were standing on their own properties. Now, the residents' homes are less than a mile away. An AR-10 shooting a 308, which I used to have and got rid of, has a range of 4.5 miles. A 9mm pistol, which I don't own, but I've shot one, has a range of 1.3 miles. Now, you think about this, well, how did this happen? It's easy. There's negligence and reckless planning due to the aggressive influence of a far-right special interest group. The county is 100% responsible for this issue and any residents being shot. Now, you're going to have this far-right group. They're going to say, well, in fact, I got a nice little quote, but I want to get my 2 cents in. Well, they were there first. Second Amendment, blah, blah. Okay. Let me tell you something, God forbid, because we have to think about this. Mature leaders, when they're thinking about things and they have to make tough decisions, they have to look down the road to protect the people that they're leading, okay? God forbid, one of these stray bullets that they are seeing kills a child. And let's talk about children 8, 9, 10 years old. Okay, guys, you stay in this yard. Don't you go. Yes, Daddy, yes. Okay. Kids are curious. They're going to go in areas they're not supposed to go. And we knew this was happening when you approved these residential communities less than a mile away from a gun range with people shooting 365 days a year in all directions. The county did. Now let's talk about this. Here's one of the new planning commissioners, because what's happened since my friend Durham has taken over, they're basically putting all these people in that are going to be puppets to do whatever the hell these guys want. Now, let me tell you, this is one of the new planning commissioners. Think about this shooting range and all the other issues that we're facing. The planning, this was in the paper. One of the new OCC commissioners, and I'm not going to say his name because he's kind of scary, told the Journal he intended to follow the Constitution and not restricting our God-given freedom. Now, I stand for that. That's wrong. The Planning Commission does affect the individual property rights in Oconee. Our founding fathers, that was one of the key things they wanted to protect. So that helps me being involved on that. The other thing is it really allows us to dig in and be protected of our God-given freedoms. I feel that it's important we adhere to the Constitution as it is written and protect those God-given freedoms. God, what can you say? What you can say is that is a bunch of horse shit. Because even
Hey,
saying
Chris,
allow bazookas no, I'm not done. Allow bazookas being carried, 50 caliber rifles, open carry in a Walmart, and you got children next to a gun range. Both things were approved. So what's going to happen? Somebody's going to win this lawsuit, and I sure as hell hope in the end they sue the county. Somebody's going to be a loser, and they need to sue the county.
hey, you're absolutely right about that. And the way this the way this is looked at in the rest of the nation, the rest of the world, that where people live together in harmony. There's an obnoxious activities list that is in the planning office, and just about every other county, committee, city, whatever, all over the United States, there's an obnoxious activities list, and you have to have a special permit to do that. Yes. And once that special permit is granted, that area becomes zoned to certain activities, and you don't. And being in the military for so many years, being around airfields, in the 40s, they built an airstrip that's 80 miles from anywhere. So it's not obnoxious. It's not going to hurt anybody if they crash an airplane. Well, over time, these people develop into these encroachment zones and these encroachment areas, and then these people start bitching because there's airplanes flying over. Well, 100 years ago, they built an airport there. 8 weeks ago, you built the house there. Do you think it's not going to be loud? So our county is absolutely, Chris, it's willful neglect because they don't have the right ordinances in place to prevent that shit from happening. It's 2023. Everything that's happening right now in our county happened everywhere else 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And we are not prepared for first world activities in our third world county with a fourth world county government that we got that wants to take us back to 1865.
We're already on the course to go back to 1865. Look, let me say something here about this. Number one, I know the people that own the gun range, and I will say this: some of the questions that Chris you read, I would be suspect at best because they're not out there shooting people. I've been to this gun range before. I have seen this gun range, how professionally it's run, how it's set up, and the bullets whizzing by. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I don't buy that irresponsible gun owner is going to go out there and just start shooting it around and roundabout. I just do not buy that at all. But the problem that this whole thing boils down to, number one, there is no zoning.
Yes.
There's no zoning. This is the reason that anybody can do anything with your property. For example, if I own 5 acres in return community and I wanted to put a gun range out there, guess what? I can. I can do that. There's nothing to stop me. There's nothing to slow me down. It is in a controlled, it's uncontrolled district is where this gun range is at. Okay. So number one, if you want to be able to do that, you're going to have to do zoning whether you like it or not. The citizens initiated zoning only works for a piece of the puzzle. It doesn't work for the whole thing. For number one, it works around the lake. You got the lake overlay. Mm-hmm. Okay, it works there. But it's not going to work in an area where they had the property before some of these homeowners moved in. These homeowners, they should have done due diligence. Don't you look, if you're going to buy a piece of property, don't you have the questions and you say, hey, okay, this is here, I like this, or I don't like this? It's due diligence.
I absolutely agree that the property owners that are, everyone there had no idea this was going to be an issue.
That's right.
But it's an issue because the county was neglectful in having any type of plan for when this kind of thing happens. The county is at fault.
Rannie,
what I have a question.
How
many of these homeowners were there prior to them putting in the gun range? That's what I want to know, because I want that to me would be the problem, because the people that were there first should be able to live. That's where the problem comes in.
Well, but again, the county allowed the second party to move into an area that is dangerous and obnoxious toward others. The county did that. That's the county's fault.
Exactly.
And both parties need to drop the lawsuits against each other and get a lawyer to sue the county to make it right.
It could be, take out the gun range, take out the name gun range. It could be a racetrack,
or an airport, or a chicken farm, or a pig farm, or anything. An obnoxious activity.
Well, we have that problem.
A hazardous chemical dumping site.
Well, right now
we have a problem too with another area that they can't even open it back up. We have the Westminster Speedway, and the same thing is happening now that's happened for 25 years up there. The Speedway has been there for years. Then there's people that have built around it, but they don't want to hear the cars in Friday and Saturday night. So that's why we don't have a Speedway anymore. It's the same thing.
Right. Well, at least that's only 2 days a week.
So, but as far as it being dangerous living near a gun range, if they don't maintain the mounds behind the targets, you start getting a pile of lead and steel and other
DHEC came in and they said there is no contamination.
No, I'm not talking about contamination. I'm talking about one bullet hitting another hard surface and taking off a stray. And it's very likely that they end up in somebody else's yard or in a tree next to somebody else.
Ernest Posto, how do you determine who the responsible gun owners are? He agrees with me with the average gun enthusiast isn't shooting into the sky, but now how do you know who is? Maybe the zoning wouldn't matter then. You can't have both.
But you got these OCC knuckleheads out there that they're buying 2 and 3 ARs at a time. They don't know what they're doing. They carry guns improperly in public. They're not going to handle themselves with any kind of decorum in any place to go, whether it's the county council or to the gun range. There's idiots everywhere, and they're going to cause trouble. And they're going to shoot up in the air, and they're going to shoot around, and you know what? It just doesn't belong in a neighborhood.
My other thing is too with the noise. Aside from, it doesn't matter if you're not hurting people. You think of the people that were there first, and I think of family members. I think of like my son. My son would lose his mind if we had gunshots going on behind our house all the time. I mean,
so the county should stop you from building a home there because of the zoning would prevent you because it was near the gun range.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, what if I was the homeowner that was there first? Is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Well,
or somebody that has Alzheimer's, or somebody that had a stroke, or somebody that has anxiety or PTSD.
Well, there should be
their home's been there 35 years, and somebody puts a gun range up behind it. You've got no zoning, and that's their home for 30, 35, 40 years. And people say things like, "Oh, well, you can move." Well, that's your home. You've raised your kids there 35 years. Why should they have to get up and leave? And they say things like, "Oh, you can go," but the whole thing is Oconee has never had any zoning. People moved here or whatnot. They shouldn't have to leave their homes just because there was no place to have a zoned home then.
Yeah. Hey, can I say one thing, Jeff?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to what
You
Cathy
said like 6 things.
Well, I want to say a couple of things.
Hurry up.
What Jeff,
time is money.
And Rannie said is correct. Now, we had this one person that said, well, what about if you build a house near a train if you knew it was there? Okay. This is a totally different. This is different. You literally have kids, safety issues. People, rational, mature leaders know that these decisions are not easy. You have to think through your decisions as a leader of a county. These guys, just like this one dude that talked about the Constitution, these guys, like Durham, they're not even thinking. It's like, it's easy. No,
but
this.
Chris,
you need to clarify which Durham.
let's talk about
because the range owner's name is Durham. So
let's talk about the last comment that was put up there about the train station.
Leader, go ahead.
So,
what?
Talking about the last comment that was put up about the train station. You know, if there's a special permit that's given to a gun range, and the gun range is established, and you do your due diligence as a homeowner, and you still decide to build your house there, you've got absolutely nothing at all to complain about. But it's not you that's going to suffer, because your forever home generally is not your forever home, and you sell it. Well, somebody else is going to buy it, and their realtor is probably not going to say anything that there's a gun range a half a mile down the road.
I want to read.
And you're going to move, and you buy a house and you move in, and all of a sudden you got Mogadishu Saturday going on.
Hold up a second, guy. I want to read something that Richard Belmore from Salem has sent us on our page. And Richard's a good guy, and he actually teaches. By the way, he teaches CWP. Section 31-1830, nuisance action. A, except as provided in the subsection, a person may not maintain a nuisance action for noise against a shooting range or other owners, operators, or users of that range located in the vicinity of that person's property if the shooting range was established as the date the person acquired the property. If there is a substantial change in the use of the range after the person acquires the property, the person may maintain a nuisance action if the action is brought within 3 years from the beginning of the substantial change. Now, here comes B. A person who owns property in the vicinity of a shooting range that was established after the person acquired the property may maintain a nuisance action for noise against the shooting range or the owner, operators, or users of the range. Only if the action is brought within 5 years after the establishment of the range or 3 years after a substantial change in the use of the range.
Right. And that's why there's a lawsuit, because there's obviously enough there to go to court.
Right.
But then when it was brought to the county council and the county council refused to act, then the county council refused to act and put it into the court system. That's still the neglect of the county. This should have been settled at the county council.
Absolutely. As I said in the very beginning, there are two losers here: the residential community and the gun range. I am not faulting the gun range at all.
No.
And I'm not faulting the residents. But let's get a reality, and you guys agree with me. I'm doing this for the audience. Let's get a reality check. We have a master plan in this county that they are ignoring, that they spent money for. These decisions like this don't take an Einstein. They're common sense decisions that you're like, okay, what about this? What about that? You have to make an effort. When you make the effort of a seventh grader trying to figure something out as serious as impacting this is, because you don't really care. It's like my way or the highway. I stand behind this. Nobody gives a shit. They only care about the safety of the children, and the gun owners, if they're making money on this range, care about their revenue. So in the end, regardless of what happens, the county needs to be taught a lesson for their negligence by being sued to make the loser of this lawsuit whole.
Well,
and they deserve it.
Well, the county needs to learn a lot of lessons. I mean, if you look at this,
and this is one example.
Well, isn't that what they keep pushing? The bottom up zoning is essentially what that is, anyways. A lawsuit.
It's citizen initiated zoning.
Yeah, citizen initiated zoning is essentially a lawsuit where all the neighbors get together and tell you that they don't like something, and they take you to court. And I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
Right.
They're pretty much getting together and saying, "Hey, we hate this." I mean, and it's terrible that it has to come to that. It should have just never happened in the first place. I don't know. It's just, and it stinks because this guy has invested all this money in this property and all this time and all this effort, and everybody is miserable and at each other's throats. When if there had been some basic rules in the first place, it would have never happened.
Well, that horse farmer that was on the news the other night, he didn't look like he just moved in last Tuesday. He looked like he's been there for 25 or 30 years.
It looked like he was new to the area.
So I mean, we don't like Richard says, we need to get to the bottom of this stuff a little bit better. But I think that everyone can agree, and even Richard can probably agree with us that the county and their negligence is the problem.
All right, we need to go to our first break of the show. Good conversation starting off. We'll continue more with this topic and other topics this evening here on Let's Talk Oconee, 725 Mother's Day evening edition. Thank you all so much for being with us, and we will come back right after our quick break.
You can always see the sun.
Man, Ernest, man. He's going wild tonight.
Hello, this is E. Riley, and I'm asking for your vote in the special election for Seneca City Council on Tuesday, May 30th. I was a member of City Council when we established the master plans for economic and recreational development. I was a councilman for 16 years, and I also serve on the Appalachian Council of Government. This experience gives me the ability to help continue downtown economic development and revitalization, as well as continue improvements of our recreation programs. These plans are moving Seneca into a golden age. Help Seneca continue its progress by voting for E. Riley for City Council on May 30th. Thank you for your consideration.
This announcement paid for by E. Riley for Seneca City Council. Support for Sunny 107.9 WFBS and Lake Kiwi Radio Online comes from our friends at Twice a Town Tap Room, located in beautiful Salem, South Carolina. Cold beer and a family atmosphere. They're locally owned and operated, and they're glad to be investing in the town of Salem. They strive to be a premier hangout in the community and county, so whether you live in town, out of town, on the lakes, or in one of the local beautiful rivers, or you're just passing through, you're welcome. Come by and stop in and see the family-friendly tap room. Live music with jukeboxes, big screen TVs, and patio areas. Don't forget they have the beers on tap and wines, and their space is absolutely conveniently located to anywhere in Oconee County. Again, for more information about Twice a Tap Room, their website is twiceatowntaproom.com. That's twiceatowntaproom.com, and we're thankful to have those great folks sponsoring our radio station. Twice a Town Tap Room, located in beautiful downtown Salem on Main Street. Sunday evening, 728. Let's Talk Oconee SC. And before we go any further, I want to say that we had a wonderful time yesterday up with our folks up in Salem for their first cruise in of the year. A little rain fell, but we had a great time, including the Blue Ridge Mountain Cloggers. They were there entertaining us yesterday. And yesterday morning, got an opportunity to head down to the airport with the animals. We did the Oconee Humane Society Fly-In for the Animals, their annual event, and helped raise money for the Humane Society, and had a wonderful, wonderful time. Conversation this evening as we continue discussing the gun range, and we'll pick up where we left off. Again, here's my whole thing. The gun range, and I know the people that own this gun range, okay? And I want to make sure we clarify that there is two Matt Durhams. Matt Durham and Scott Durham are associated with the gun range. They own Sure Shot Firearms in downtown Seneca. And right. I've been there. I've took a tour. Matter of fact, I've done some work for them up there. And let me tell you, the place is every bit of safety measures are taken in place. They've got everything that you would think of. I feel safe. Now, down the road, this has been a subject going on for the last 2.5 years. And you're right, it's going to wind up in a court. It is in the court now, but I think it's going to wind up even further in another court at some point. And I do kind of see the simple fact is if a party loses this case, I see somebody going after Oconee County.
And they absolutely should.
Absolutely. I see it. And
I'm telling you, I would stop the lawsuits against each other and come together and go after the county.
We have a comment here. Ernest checks back in. Can I get my neighbors together and take one of our neighbors to court over a loud chihuahua? What if the neighbor with the rat dog gets angry and seeks revenge?
Well, you're gonna just have to stick the neighborhood rooster on that thing. Ernest, do you live in Walhalla? Because you're about to lose your chickens.
Is that coming up again for another vote?
Who knows?
Is it? Are they
I have
after
no
the
idea.
chickens again?
I thought they threw that out.
I hope they do, man. But we haven't had a show since the Republican convention, and we've missed a lot. We got a lot to talk about.
I really want to move since the essence of time. There was something that happened last week that really bugged me, and Rannie, I know that it bugged you too. The early release of the said convicted sex offender, the former sheriff's deputy, that really bothered me.
Well, it is disheartening to say the least that they put this predator pedophile back on the streets just because he's an old man. Hell, he was an old man when he did it. And there's just so much scandal going on right now in the police department, the court system, and everywhere else that it's not necessarily unbelievable. I mean, it seems to be right on par. Let's just turn our good old boys loose. I mean, he had a preacher deputy go with him to court. Remember?
Yeah, I do.
I
mean,
the
that system was rigged the whole way, but by the good old boy system in this county.
I thought that the whole point in the light sentence was the fact that he was so ill.
Right.
Was that not the
But it's not
that,
like that. If he doesn't want to pay for another 14-year-old girl to come sit on his lap in a wheelchair, that he couldn't do it right now.
I just have a problem, regardless if you're convicted of a crime such as that, again, particularly against a child, you should deserve no consideration. You should serve that sentence out.
I think that what comes into play, and it shouldn't. This is me saying this. It should not come into play. I think money comes into play because I think when somebody has cancer like that they don't want the state to have to pay for that person's care. That is the idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely.
That's why they give that compassionate short sentence or short release.
But how much does it cost to put that collar back on and take it back off anytime he needs to get an MRI? If he's that far down the road, he don't need them MRIs. He needs hospice.
And I don't disagree, but I think that the whole thing is that they didn't want to have to pay for somebody to care for him to be behind bars, and that's why the light sentence. And then here we are. But
who's paying for these MRIs and all this stuff?
Released.
Is it?
I mean, and so is that really justice? I don't think so. You don't think so?
I don't either. I don't. I think it's not justice.
Did you read? You read the article in the paper, right? They put it online. So we got this one guy. He says liberal Democrat justice at its finest. That's what he wrote about this guy. Blaming it. I mean, why in the hell? Really?
But if you look at that guy, all of his buddies are not liberal Democrats.
Yeah, and the judge isn't either. So, yeah,
well, no, I know
that's
that.
misinformation.
Why would somebody write that on the damn page with a guy that assaulted a girl? I mean, that's stupid. Do you guys agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, whoever wrote that comment has absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah,
sounds like the taxpayers are on the foot for that bill too. Because it was talked about in the story we're talking about that. It says that John Tower would respectfully request the conditions of the electronic monitoring be removed from the terms of the supervised release, and that the United States Probation Office be allowed to remove the GPS electric monitoring and leg ankle bracelet. The motion concluded. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it sounds awful lot like the taxpayers are paying for his ankle bracelet.
Now, I think that we need to know exactly where he is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. And then,
my God!
What about that school bus driver that did the same thing? When's he getting out?
In 3 years, or the 3 years is the monitoring anyway. I think.
I guarantee you that it'll be sooner than 3 years.
I mean, our kids are not safe anywhere with these monsters, and we don't even know the rest of them. especially if this sled investigation at the police department goes any further, we're going to know who all the monsters are.
Well, you want to talk about monsters? Here it is, back in the page this week. More domestic violence charge. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Jaquan Nathaniel Goodine, 32, of Seneca, charged first-degree domestic violence. And then we go down here. There's another headline, a Westminster woman charged with domestic violence. I mean, this is just getting absolutely crazy.
You know, most everything that you see in the paper could have been avoided if people would just follow the rules they learn in kindergarten.
Ain't that the truth? Keep your hands to yourself.
But some of them had to go to kindergarten first. And that's part of the problem.
Right. But then when you look at this domestic violence, we know how horrible it is. You still have a certain group that always wants to challenge people to a physical fight.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is that? We can't get by talking. We want to meet you somewhere so we can get our asses beat.
But that same group won't even stand up for women and denounce domestic violence.
Bingo!
Oh, they had an opportunity. They had a 30-minute roadshow at the April 1st council meeting. And they didn't not one time denounce the domestic violence in any form or fashion.
Do you think they're going to?
Anna, you're right. Repeat what you just said. Not once in that lecture hall did one person denounce physical violence against women. That is sick.
Or against anybody.
Exactly.
I mean, that we got a councilman that's on record, the chairman on record stating that when the Smith guy, whatever that idiot's name is, was carrying a gun in the Blue Marble, and he called the Republican chairman's wife the bitch word, he said, well, maybe she deserved it. I mean, it was in the paper.
I didn't realize that. That is disgusting. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You know, I hate to be Debbie Downer on this whole thing, but I told y'all so. I called every moment of
he
this.
put that on. It was on Facebook where he said that. And somebody screenshotted it, sent it to us. We'll find it.
I called every bit of this would happen. I knew it was going to happen. And I really honestly don't think we've seen the end of it yet. We've just seen the little small bits and pieces, because you got to look at it this way. Matt's only chairman for this year, half a year. And then next year we have an election. You ain't seen nothing yet. And, they kept on for the last 2.5 years. The only thing I heard, we have to cut the budget. We have to cut the budget. We got to cut the budget. We haven't cut the damn budget yet. So we've got a second reading of this budget coming up. We only cut $1 million, but we're putting that $1 million in some sort of strategic fund.
Man, I tell you what, I know that in South Carolina that you can't strike. But if they don't pay these county workers a living wage come July, I mean a real legitimate living wage, they need to walk off and go somewhere else and make more money, and let that council figure out how to drive the motor grader, figure out how to fix the roads, how to pick up the trash, how to run these recycle centers. And let that 5-person council sit out there and do them damn jobs.
Don't forget the people over at the courthouse,
right?
And the county offices.
It's a great and noble and emotional fucking thing. Excuse my French. To talk about, let's pay the cops, let's pay the EMS, but what about everybody else that are going to be starving when diesel's $7 again? And we can't afford
think about
that.
the folks that clean the offices. Think about the folks that clean that courthouse. I mean, it's.
You got a big old fuzzball.
Yeah, the ones that come, the ones that do all the yards and yeah.
So basically, when you look at it and you look at the millions that we're spending on Sewer South, it all comes down to making mature decisions. You don't have unlimited money and unlimited time, and there's always tough choices that have to be made. So
maybe it's me, Chris and folks. Maybe it's me, but this $65,000 for the deputy sheriffs, I don't know. It seems like I have an interesting problem with that, because what about the deputies that have put 20 years in and 25 years that's not making 65, that takes them immediately to what I would consider minimum wage if you're basing that at 65,000. But let's talk about the $31,000 a year for a EMT or firefighter in Oconee County. And
hey, be careful. Richard's going to send you all that information. He's going to get you.
Well,
so be careful.
But I'm being serious. There's a huge issue here. 65,000, and we're putting all the eggs in baskets. And I know that we need law enforcement. I know we need protection, but my God, we need firefighters. We need EMT responders. We need these kind of folks too. And they're starting off
For
pay
the
at
longest
$31,000. $31,000 to come save your life.
Right.
Well, think about how long it took, and they had openings sitting open. And I know it's not a life-saving thing, but how long it took them to fill positions at the library. You have to have a master's degree to run the library. And do you know what that job starts out at? I think it was in the high 30s,
right?
Or 40,000, and you have to have a master's degree.
But you can go to work at McDonald's right there in West Union. They got a sign up that says $12 an hour starting out doing putting fries and grease,
and they'll pay for you to go to school.
Well,
but if you work over at the motor pool,
here's a good one. Chick-fil-A is a prime example. Herb Tyler, they will pay more. And they will give tuition options to go to school.
Well, McDonald's does that too.
Yeah.
But if you work at the county motor pool, a starting out mechanic's going to get $37,000 a year, and they got to buy his own tools up to 2 inches.
So Jeff,
he's going to need $20,000 worth of tools to work on 700 pieces of equipment. Different pieces of equipment in the county.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. So what? And Cathy, thank you for bringing up the library. So, Kat, what we're talking about here are two things. The first thing is, Jeff, you're absolutely right. When you say 65,000, the reason 65,000 is because it's a good point to make for a political speech.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody is going to. Let me finish. Nobody's going to argue about the cops. Oh, 65. Okay, guys. All right, that is it. But the issue is this. This is a more difficult decision because what needs to happen is, and they're not doing, they dug a hole here. You have an entire county of employees, and we don't know what a fair competitive salary is because you're reacting emotionally rather than making good business decisions, using data that is readily available if they subscribe to it and looking across the county. Now, Jeff made a very good point when he said, well, you got this person making this and making that. You can't make those adjustments all at one time. No, because you don't have enough money. But you've dug yourself a deep hole, and until you face into it and understand where you're remiss in paying salaries and you start making adjustments, you're going to follow this thing like a hamster wheel going forward. And to your point, Rannie, people are going to wise up. Those family ties in this county won't matter if you can't send your kid to college.
Let me tell you one other thing too. They have people afraid to discuss their salaries. It is not illegal to talk about what you make. You can talk about your salaries. Discuss your salaries. That's how you get screwed.
Well, they're all public record.
Pay. That's how you get screwed. That's how they keep people screwed over. Discuss your salaries with your coworkers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Know what you're getting. Know what you're getting paid.
And all county employees' salaries are public record.
Yeah, but they encourage that, and in business, I don't ever understand why they make people feel like they cannot discuss it or like something's going to happen to them if they do. And that's the biggest bunch of hooey on the planet. It is not illegal to discuss your salary.
All right. Up on your screen right now is the actual website for the Oconee County, SouthCarolina.com. This is from Human Resources. So let's just take a groundskeeper at the airport. Here's the physician. Okay. $29,206. That's just a groundskeeper. All right. Let's move on to emergency dispatcher. They're not listing the price or the salary for an emergency dispatcher, if you noticed.
Because it's embarrassingly low.
That's my point. That's what I'm getting. All right, deputy sheriff, uncertified deputy starts at $40,000. The certified deputy 2 starts at $41,500. Okay, so you see that. Now let's go up here to road and bridges. $31,076 a year for someone that works in roads and bridges.
Driving heavy machinery.
And having to have a CDL to drive the big trucks and doing all the heavy work. All right, let's move on.
And you can't tell me that roads and bridges job is not just as dangerous as being a police officer. Because
and
the
you're
people around here
you
drive
have to pay
like
to get the CDL. And you
Right.
have to have the insurance.
There you go, 37,000 in Rannie. What was mentioned earlier about an auto diesel mechanic, $37,432. And you're right, you have to provide your own tools because
it's written right there.
It definitely it's in there. Building official, between $75,000 and $90,000 a year for a building codes official. Okay, that now let me be honest. What's more important? Isn't a deputy sheriff kind of more important than having to pay in a building codes official $75,000 to $90,000?
Not when the floor falls out of the second story and you kill 15 people.
But that's okay. We're going to do away with all that. We don't need that. Remember?
Well, and here's the thing. I hope when it does happen, when they do away with building codes in this county, that they take every person that was a part of that decision to court and they sue them for neglect.
All right. Finally, here another one I want to show you. I've been talk to you about the recycling attendants. $24,243.
Man, I don't know how these people survive.
Okay, so guys, let me say, I agree with what you're saying, but here's the thing: you're looking at numbers, and you're using a point of view that has to do what you've heard other people make. The problem is, we know that there are issues. But how big is it? We don't know what they make in the market.
So Matt Durham said at the last council meeting,
he doesn't know what he's talking
but what he did say was that there needs to be a study done, that somebody needs to go and look at every job and look at what folks around us make. But we got to make sure that they look at growing communities and not like Transylvania County, North Carolina, where there ain't nothing going on. They don't need to look in Macon County, North Carolina,
or Stevens County, Franklin County,
North Carolina,
or Clayton County, or Rabun County.
But if we're going to have employees that are going to do a good job for us, we need to pay like Anderson does, and like Easley does, and like Greenville does. We don't need to be paying like Podunk National Forest counties that have nothing pay. I mean, exactly. We could pay like Highlands does, and I'd be satisfied.
You pay national levels here for. If you want to make a significant change in the county, there are jobs.
And I'm going to tell you what, to make that right is going to be way more than 8%. I'm willing to bet that it's 15 to 25% more on every job across the board to make it right.
I don't agree with you because I don't know what the numbers are.
I'm just a betting man, and I would say it's between 15 and 20% higher.
I don't think so. I don't know. First of all, I look at those numbers and they don't make sense, and you need to understand what the pay is, because believe it or not, eventually, I don't know why. It's very weird. This community is a rural community, and people have a tendency to put roots down, and when they do, that's how these counties take advantage. They pay them less. Because what happens is these people won't leave. That's not fair to the people. That's not how you treat good people. You treat them with respect by paying them what they're worth and a competitive salary. And people need to quit talking about socialism and Marxism like these. Oh, we don't want this. You know what, guys? What I'm talking about is capitalism. This is the way you run a business.
All right. Finally, here as we close, getting towards the end of the show, I want to talk to you. We'll talk about this. Hart likens request to Wheel of Fortune.
Oh God, that was so stupid. In the grave.
Chris, I'm gonna let you take the first stab at it. But remember, you're definitely don't look like Vanna White with your white beard.
Okay, so Glenn, here's the thing that makes me very sad. Glenn's done some surveying for me. So when I've talked to Glenn, I think he's a good guy. When I talk to Glenn as a councilman, I think he's led around the nose by Durham and these guys, and he ends up basically spouting off crap that makes no sense and makes us look stupid. First of all, they did this whole damn Sewer South thing wrong. They didn't even do a due diligence. That's what you do. So we don't even know what we're getting. It is a bet. We probably have a better chance with Powerball. So when you look at something like this, when you're doing these large projects, you got to create some type of contingencies. You just do that. But what's going to happen out of this, the funding for this stuff that we're talking about, and Hart wants to talk about Wheel of Fortune, those numbers are not going to come close to what we're really going to need in the end. These numbers that we're going to look at are going to be huge, huge numbers, a hell of a lot more than what we're talking about here. But I just think that was irresponsible, immature, stupid, and he was pandering to a group of people that anybody that would applaud that, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're the same ones that wouldn't have it. They're the same ones that don't understand the points we were making about the gun range and the residential communities where both people are getting hurt. That's my 2 cents.
Paul has a comment here that checks in with us. Thanks, Paul, for your comment this evening. Would raising the pay of the deputies attract better deputies and the ones that aren't corrupt?
Hey, you're the white. What Irvin's beard?
That's right. It very well possibly could.
Maybe we wouldn't have to send everything to SLED every time something happens.
Well, you know what? The county investigates what the county wants to investigate. And
you know what?
But let's don't get sidetracked with that. I want to talk about what Hart said.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys what you think real quick about the $5,000 with the way materials are changing, like the prices of things. Would that not be like a reasonable thing to just say when you had bid for a job and the way everything changes, because constantly the prices of things are changing?
That's right.
Well, here
would that be outlandish to come back and say, hey, this went up since, we bid on this and that's why this happened? Because to me, that just doesn't sound all that odd. Having looked at the way stuff is changing, rapidly changing.
But 40 years ago, and in 1865, back when these people want to take us to, you spit in your hand, you rubbed some dirt in it, and you shook on it, and you did what you had to do to get the job done.
Right.
And there was no inflation. There was no, hey, look, all the paper mills are shutting down. We got diesel that's $4 a gallon, looking to go to $7 by July. There was not all of these anomalies in the market that cause a fluctuation in parts, and not only in parts, but in getting transportation to get the workers to work. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is, if you take a look, come up and take a walk through the Whetstone Fire Station in Mountain Rest, and you can see county contracting at its best. If the power goes out, I got to go through the side door, climb up on the fire truck, reach up and pull the red cable off of the
to get the fire truck
just to get the fire truck out. Well, now I can't reach it to pull it down without putting the fire truck back in there. So if the power's out on the mountain and I've got to go to an emergency call, every piece of equipment in the station is exposed and can be taken off with while the responders are somewhere else. That's county contracting at its best. And then you talk about this Bounty Land fire station. I love everybody in the EMS community here. They're doing a good job. They do their best, but sometimes you miss a thing or two, and the sink might be in the wrong place. But if you want to move the sink 3 inches in the contract,
you're right. You got to do
there's a change order.
That's right.
Well, that change order is going to cost $10,000 just because that's how you make money in contracting. That's how I'd make money in contracting. You gave me a contract. Yeah. We're going to build it this way. And if you change your mind, well, it's going to cost you money. And so obviously a lot of these folks have not experienced real bona fide contracting.
No.
You know, go
Jeff, can
ahead.
I-
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, good. Guys, I want to make sure that we talk about this. Okay, so Cathy was talking about the $5,000 on the increase of materials or whatever. She's right, but we have two facts that we need to deal with. The first fact is we do not have unlimited funds in a county. That is a fact. That is reality, no matter what anybody says. That's important to understand because we all know what we want to do. We don't have that money. Now, moving over to the new leadership, and they're talking about, well, I save money here and I'll spend money here. The problem is you only have so much money, just like a business. Now you have to make unpopular choices, and people don't like it. Rannie made a good point. If I was looking at this and I'd say there is life at stake, that would be a no-brainer. Give him make sure it's competitive pricing. Give him what he needs because that should go to the top of the list versus something like this damn sewer south. Okay? And that is how you work it. You work at these things. What are things that impact people and their lives? And then you whittle down the list. The next thing is you have to understand the market on these salaries because you could literally take it to the point that you create a nightmare for yourself. You just react and give somebody a $5,000. I'm not saying you, Cathy. I'm just saying a raise, and it's out of market. Well, the next thing you know, you got Easley or Pickens or Green will say, "Well, holy shit, we need these people," and now they've raised it, and now all of a sudden we're into this issue. So you need to make sure they're competitive. But the most important thing is we're not making decisions based on priorities on what's important. That's the only way to do it.
All right. Well, we're coming up to 8 o'clock here on this Sunday evening of Let's Talk Oconee SC. I want to go ahead and start going around for the final word here this evening. And Chris, I'm going to let you start off your final thoughts here for this Sunday evening show.
Okay. First of all, I want to really thank people for tuning in. You don't always agree with us, but, we all have opinions. But I just want to be very sincere in what I'm telling you guys. You don't have to like what county management does for you. I mean, we're Americans and we're used to complaining. That's just life, man. But I do not have confidence that and I don't care if they're extremists or Democrats or whatever, I do not have confidence that these guys have the courage to do the right thing to protect our families. And that's important, to protect our families. I don't at all, because they're only reacting to which way the wind blows, period. And that's all they care about.
All right, Cathy.
I think I've said everything I've got to say tonight, except Happy Mother's Day to everybody. And I hope everybody has a great week. Hopefully everything will be uneventful this week. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Trust me, I'm hoping it's very uneventful
and
too.
It's great to have you back. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Oh, me too. Rannie?
Well, I tell you what, this has been a great show and a great opportunity to talk about something other than politics. We've talked about things that really mean something to the county tonight, and I'm just real happy that we were able to do that instead of all that other junk. So hopefully everybody has a great week. And I don't know if the audience saw my hat or not. I appreciate Yerba for getting that for me. It says "I love naked pickleball," and I tell you what, I'm getting really good, and I'm getting involved in the pickleball and naked pickleball circuit. And I got this friend, and she lives in South Florida during the summer, in Michigan in the winter, and backwards. Yeah, right. And she's a snowbird. She goes down there in the winter and then she goes home. She said that they play a lot of pickleball down there, and sometimes it gets rowdy and gets naked. And she said last week before she came up here that there's this woman down there, she's playing, and she thought that she's having a heart attack. Turns out she's just stepping on her boob. But anyways, that's all I got for this week. And stay tuned. Chris and I, we're going to go out and do some videos here coming up real soon.
You make pickleball, Rand.
What's that?
I do.
I'm good at it. I'll tell you what. It's
You are, and I stand with you. This is unfair.
right. All right. Well, y'all have a great week.
Oh boy, I can't wait to see the video. It'll be filmed at 11. I want to thank everybody for joining us here on this edition of Let's Talk Oconee. It is great to be back in the air chair, and so many of you have checked in. I want to thank each and every one of you folks that have checked in and offered your words of prayer, encouragement. Now that we know what's wrong with me, maybe we'll never have another flare up again. I could only hope, because let me tell you, calling out Ralph with nothing coming up really stinks, by the way. All right, next week, same time, same channel. As always, during the week, you can go back and watch our shows at the website at letstalkoconeese.com. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page and our group page as well. Search Let's Talk Oconee on Facebook and you will find it. Let's Talk Oconee is a special presentation of Lake Kiwi Radio Online Incorporated. And folks, that's going to be it for tonight. Have a great evening, great week, and we'll see you back here next Sunday evening beginning at 7 o'clock.